恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo Sadanto Suchetoye Arahati Sanmiao Sanputo Che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受者，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lending life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one. 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 Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. Just give me a moment, let me get my slides out. Okay, while I'm doing that, does anyone have anything to share, any questions to bring up, anything to clarify at all? No? Okay. Today we are continuing to explore the second of eight. Wait, hold on. This is not the right slide. Sorry about that. Supposed to start off here. We are looking at the second of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's 10 conduct and vows, the second one, which is to make praises to the dust come ones, or to the dust come ones. So we are continuing that, which is here. Okay, number 2. We've looked at worship and respecting all Buddhas. So we're going to take some time, which we did, I think, the last 2 weeks, at least 1.5 weeks, to look at what it means to make praises to the Buddhas. Okay. And I remember last week I shared this with you. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva has this something called the Chatu Stava, which is I think there's more, but historically this is what's left, what we can find out. There are 4 left that makes up what is known as a Chatu Stava. And this is quite significant because Nagarjuna, either some people call him Venerable Nagarjuna, some people call him Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. He is known, he created the Madhya Makasku, the middle way, in which everything is based on emptiness, and the Bodhisattva way. And it is significant, at least for me, because although his primary, he emphasizes on emptiness, but yet there is the devotional side to his practice, and is reflected in this. There are 4 collections of verses, and this is, today I'm going to share some of this with you. Okay, I'm going to share the first one, the hymn to He who transcends the world, which is the Buddha. All right, so let me share some of the, I'm not sharing everything because there's 28 verses, but I'm sharing the more, how you say, noteworthy or the more profound ones. For example, he starts off, this is the first verse, but I'm only sharing excerpts. He says, "Homage to you, the transcendent one, who guides beings to the knowledge of solitude and discernment, you who, for the welfare of living beings, have long endured through compassion." So although later on you will see, although he reinforces the Buddha's teachings, that actually there are no living beings, but he still, despite that, he still acknowledges the Buddha's how you say, hard work, I would say. Yeah. So all, despite the fact that the Buddha thought that all living beings are empty, he still recognizes that the Buddha, although living beings are empty, the Buddha went through a lot of hardship to save living beings. So he says, "O great sage, you have taught that no beings exist." There you go. That no beings exist apart from the aggregates. What are the aggregates? Aggregates are the skandhas. So I'm not going to try to explain all the verses because these are on emptiness, and sometimes it can be a bit daunting, or how you say, if you want to know your true skill in Buddhism, you try to explain the works of emptiness by people like Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, and you quickly realize your true, how you say, whether you really understand things or not. So I'm not going to try to explain all the verses. If you have questions, please ask. Okay, if you have questions, please ask. So I'm going to, I'm not going to try to explain all, but what I can, offhand, I'll try to explain. So the aggregates here mean the skandhas. What are the skandhas? Form, feeling, formation, form, feeling, formation, consciousness, and feelings. Form, no, I already said feelings. Wait, hold on. I used to memorize this. I remember I had my master's exam and I had to memorize form, feeling, formation, consciousness, and volition. Okay, someone can Google what are the 5 aggregates, please. And then it says, "Yet for the sake of living beings, you have undertaken the supreme hardship. You have explained that even these aggregates appear to the wise perception." Yes, thank you so much, Leven. Form, feeling, perception. I'm going to say consciousness now, and I'm going to forget what's number 5. Oh my God. Okay, anyway, the verse goes on. "You have explained that even these aggregates appear to the wise like illusion, mirages, cities of celestial spirits, and dreams." What are the 5 skandhas? The mental formations. Thank you, Levan. Formation. The 5 skandhas are basically what you take as existence. What everyone presumes existence is, if from a Buddhist perspective, if you try to understand what it means to exist, everything fits neatly into the 5 skandhas. Or you could just look at form. For example, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. You could look at it from that perspective as well. But basically, it is the summation of the human, I wouldn't say only the human experience, but since we are all humans here for now, you can say that the 5 skandhas represent what it means to exist, to think that we are alive. But the problem is, because we don't, out of ignorance, we don't know, we can't tell what they actually are, we take it to be the self. We identify with the skandhas to be the self. So when the skandhas undergo change, for example, old age, sickness, death, we think that it's happening to us, and then all kinds of problems begin. Okay? So moving on to the verses. It says, those things that arise from causes have no independent reality. That means they don't exist in and of itself. They are all conditioned. How could there be a fixed essence in them? You have taught them to be like reflections. What are reflections? You can see a reflection, like in the mirror, but there is no, there is nothing to it at all, right? It's just a reflection. There is absolutely nothing behind it. There's no, there's no substance, there's no weight, there's no, so it goes on to say, action is not independently established by itself, nor does the agent stand independently in ordinary convention. What he's talking about? He's talking about us and the way we create karma. The two exist only in dependence upon one another. This is what you have taught. You here is capital Y, which means the Buddha. Neither the doer nor the experiencer exists as an independent support for merit or demerit. Because they arise dependently, you have declared this, O Lord of Speech. It says, if a characteristic existed separately, it would be distinct from that which it characterizes. Okay, this one sometimes you need to slow down and think a bit. But since neither exists independently of the other, you have clearly taught their lack of inherent existence. Again, what this means is that everything is conditioned. It's not, everything is a compound. It comes together based on conditions, and it does not exist in and of itself. So free from both characteristic and the characterized, beyond the range of verbal expression, this world is seen by the eye of wisdom to be peaceful. If you can see through this, if you meditate well and your mind stops, and you can see through the through ignorance, and you see things for what they are, for what they are, then everything will become peaceful. Your mind, okay, you realize that you no longer carry all the baggage with you. What baggage? All your past karmic seeds. Why is it peaceful? Well, everything, our past karmic seeds actually determine how we feel, see, understand every single thing that happens around us and to us. So we are never able to see things for what they are. It's our judgment, our perspective, our understanding. It is always clouded by our karma, by our karmic seeds. But if you are free from that, you realize how free you become. You are no longer detected by your past. Okay, it's a very nice feeling. The sense of joy or happiness or calmness is not a crazy joy where you like laugh or run around, jump around and dance. Not that kind of joy. This joy is a very quiet, satisfied, calm, peaceful joy. And the joy that you feel is beyond this world. Nothing in this world can give you that, because everything in this world is conditioned. Then it goes on to say, what truly exists does not undergo destruction merely by existing, and what does not exist cannot be destroyed. How can destruction occur where no real essence is found? Okay, this style of language is typical of the Madhya, okay, I can't remember, school. They says the destruction of a thing cannot occur if it is completely one with itself, nor can destruction occur if it is entirely separate from itself. From a destroyed cause, an effect cannot truly arise, nor as in a dream can an effect arise from what has no reality. This is the perception of the sages. Okay, from what has ceased, no new spark can arise. All productions are said by you to be like magical creations. There's in the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, which is a commentary on the great, let me see, Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra, the Sutra of Great Wisdom, the commentary on the Sutra of Great Wisdom, that lists down 10. The Buddha uses 10, the Shastra explains the 10 categories of illusions or delusions that the Buddha uses. For example, like mirages, like dewdrops, like lightning, like foam, and so on. So it's from what has ceased, no new sprout can arise. All productions are said by you to be like magical creations. Therefore, this world is understood by you to arise through conceptual construction. Once fully understood, it is unborn and does not perish. To understand the language of, to understand what all these verses are trying to say, these verses are in praise of the Buddha's teachings of emptiness. That means someone who has woken up, who has broken through ignorance. And I find that an excellent way not to fully understand, but at least to come to grips to what the text is trying to point to, the principles are trying to point to, is our dreams. Our dreams, when we are dreaming, we take it to be real. We are using our eyes, we're using our ears, our nose, tongue. We have a body in our dreams, right? We can hear, we can speak. There are people in our dreams. We take things to be actual. We do not question whether our dreams are false or not. But the moment you wake up, you realize that everything that you thought that had substance actually does not exist at all. So when you see it from that perspective, then languages like this, it is unborn and does not perish, will make more sense. Okay, so this is the last set of verses that I'm going to torture you all with. Say, some argue that suffering is self-made, other-made, both made, or without cause. Okay, these are all the different schools that speak of afflictions and sufferings. But you have taught suffering to be empty and dependently arisen. Whatever is dependently arisen, that itself is emptiness according to you. You have proclaimed with a lion's roar that no phenomenon exists independently. For the abandoning of all conceptual constructions, you taught emptiness. But those who grasp even at emptiness itself, you declared to be greatly mistaken. So this is just part of how Nagarjuna Bodhisattva praises the Buddha. He praises, in this set of verses, he praises the Buddha through the Buddha's teachings itself, the profound teaching of emptiness. Okay, now I have a sutra for you today. Actually, I have two sutras. The first one is this, where King Pasenadi praises the Buddha, and it's very unusual. I found this sutra because why? He goes to the Buddha. The king doesn't have a question, and he's just there to pay his respects to the Buddha. And then the second sutra that I have for you all today has a very long backstory attached to it. It's about yakshas. What are yakshas? Yakshas are the spirits around us. Yakshas are not asuras. Asuras are like demigods. Asuras are usually in the heavenly realms, or they try to get into the heavenly realms and they fight with the citizens of the heavenly realms because they were cast out. So that's asuras, whereas the yakshas are more earthbound. They can travel, they have spiritual powers, they can travel to the heavens, but they're usually earthbound, and they live, usually every lake, every tree, all these things will have yakshas. So they are earthbound spirits. So I have a story about that as well. I think something like, the Chinese, we have Datokong. If I'm not wrong, he would be classified as a yaksha, something like that. If I'm wrong, anyone knows, please share. Okay. All right. So where is this? Okay. So we start off when, let me see, the Buddha was dwelling at Savatthi in Jata Grove, Anatta Pindika's park. And then King Pasenadi of Kosola had returned from the war, victorious in battle. And then he set out for the park. And let me see, these are all how he went to find the Buddha. And then he approached the monks and he told the monks that he would like an audience with the Buddha. And by then, at that time, the Buddha was in his kuti, in his meditation hut, with the door closed. So they told the king to approach quietly, and then you enter the porch of the hut, clear your throat, like make a sound, and just tap on the bolt, and then the Buddha will grant you an audience. So that's what he did. And the Buddha opened the door, and King Pasenadi entered the hut, and then he bowed with his head at the Buddha's feet. That's what they do in Sri Lanka. If you go to Sri Lanka, you will see sometimes children bowing at the feet of the elders. They will bow, their head will touch the feet, or they bow and then their hands will hold the feet of their elders. Yeah, and they do that to monks as well. That's what the king did. And then he, and not only that, he kissed the Buddha's feet, and then he announced who he was. And then the Buddha said, "Oh, why are you here?" He says, "What reasons do you have to show such supreme honor to this body and displaying such an offering of loving kindness?" And then the king replied, "It is out of my gratitude and thankfulness that I show supreme honor to the Blessed One, or the Buddha." And then what else did he do? Well, he praised the Buddha in 10 verses. He says, why is he doing this? He says, the Buddha practices for the welfare of many people, for the happiness of many people. He has established many people in the noble method, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, that is in the way of the good Dharma, in the way of the wholesome Dharma. He says that's one reason why he's showing such loving kindness and reverence to the Buddha. Then he says, second reason is the Buddha is virtuous, of mature behavior, noble behavior, wholesome behavior, possessing wholesome behavior. Number 3 is the Buddha has been a forest dweller who resorts to remote lodgings in forests and jungle groves, as opposed to most other people. Number 4, the Buddha is content. The Buddha is not materialistic at all. Whatever kind of robes the Buddha has, in fact, the Buddha always wore the same robes. Whatever food, the Buddha has never shown a preference for food. In fact, if you take a monastic out, usually if you ask the monastic, what would you like to eat, you'll probably not get a reply. Yeah, not all the time. Okay, not all the time. Sometimes they do have, if their digestion is not so good, they might prefer something plain or porridge if possible. But then they're not going to tell you, oh, I feel like I want char kway teow today, or I feel like I want impossible burger or something like that. Yeah, usually they won't have a preference. So the Buddha is content with whatever robes, alms food, lodging, and medicines that he can get. And then the reason number 5, the Buddha is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings of reverential salutation, and is an unsurpassed field of merit of everyone in this world. The Buddha is number one in all this. And number 7, the Buddha gains at will, without trouble or difficulty, the 4 jhanas or dhyanas. That means at any moment, the Buddha can enjoy the bliss of dhyana. Okay, even when he's sick. Number 6, talking about being sick, I recently had terrible food poisoning, and really, when I read, let me go back one slide. This number 7, when I read this, how I wish that I too could, at any moment I want, enter the bliss of dhyana. Yeah, but you only appreciate it when you are encountering terrible, terrible suffering. Yeah. Okay, number 6, 8. No. Let me see. That was 7, right? 4, 5. Oh, I missed a number. So 4, 5, 6. All right, now this is 7. Why did my numbers get reversed? It says the Blessed One gets to hear at will, without trouble or difficulty, talk concerned with the austere life that leads to the elimination of defilements, that is conducive to opening up the heart, that is talk on fewness of desires, on contentment, on solitude, on not getting bound up with others, on arousing energy, on virtuous behavior, etc. Now, if you, if you connect this to the precepts, then it makes so much sense. Why? Because why do the precepts discourage idle talk? That means talk that doesn't make sense, that's not conducive to practice, and to stay away from lies, slander, harsh speech, gossip, and all that. Well, it's because when you are always surrounded by the Dharma, your heart and your mind is not on the topics of anything to do with unwholesome things like hatred or ignorance or ill will, desire-based things like that. And given some time, your mind will be very tranquil. Number 8, the Blessed One recollects his manifold past abodes, his past lives. That is 1 birth, 2 births, 3 births, up to many eons of world dissolution and evolution. And not only that, he remembers all the details. He remembers his name, his parents, the location, the food, how old, what was his lifespan, what deeds did he do, the face that he was with, how he was born that way, and the things that he did that caused his next birth to arise. You see karma happening within yourself. Yeah, so that's why he pays respects to the Buddha. And number 9 is the Buddha with his divine eye can see this, what he sees for himself, the Buddha can also see for all other living beings, and the effects on karma on them as well. And then, let me see, this is still the same, point number 9, how karma affects all living beings. And number 10, because the Buddha has destroyed all the fetters, all the unwholesome deeds, and let me see, the Buddha has realized for himself with direct knowledge in this very life the taintless liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom, and having entered upon it, he dwells in it. So after he says all this, okay, he's not asking he didn't come to see the Buddha for instruction or anything. He just came to see the Buddha just so that he could bow to the Buddha. And when the Buddha asked him why, he gave the Buddha all these reasons, and then he left. Yeah, imagine being born during the time of a Buddha and being able to do something like that. Okay, now we come to do we have Does anyone have anything they want to ask? We are halfway through. Any questions? Anything you want to bring up? Okay, now we come to another sutta called Alavaka the Yaksha. Now this Yaksha Alavaka doesn't like the Buddha. He's not the Buddha's disciple. But why does he praise the Buddha? Well, that happens at the end of the sutra. So there are two words. Okay, the sutra itself is very terse. Okay, you'll go through the sutra first, and then I'll give you the backstory of everything else that happened, which is the sutra only gives you like the 5%. Yeah, the sutra doesn't really do justice to what actually happened. Yeah. Okay, so what in the sutra what we have is this. The Buddha went to a place called Alavi, and the location that he chose falls under the spirit Alavaka. Okay, when you hear stories like or other sutras where the monks go to a cave and there's a local spirit there, or they go to a pond and there's a spirit there, this is what happened to the Buddha. He went to this place and it was under the domain of Alavaka. Now in this sutta, Alavaka is just like a normal spirit in charge of a certain area, but from the commentaries, oh my, he is not a normal yaksha at all. So anyway, this yaksha tells the Buddha to get out. Why? Because the place belongs to him. So he told the Buddha to get out. And what did the Buddha do? Did the Buddha say, do you know who I am? No. Have you heard of the Buddha? I am the Buddha. Or, no, the Buddha did not do that. Instead, the Buddha obliged. The Buddha just agreed to his demand, and the Buddha went out. And the yaksha probably thought that he could push the Buddha around, then asked the Buddha to come back. And the Buddha very politely addressing him as Sir, respectable Sir. The Buddha said, okay. And the Buddha came back in. Then second time, he ordered the Buddha out. The Buddha went out. And then he called the Buddha back again, and the Buddha came in. And then the third time, he ordered the Buddha out again. Okay, and then he ordered the Buddha back in. And the Buddha, without losing his temper, without losing his patience, without getting upset, and still being very respectful, complied. But the fourth time, okay, on the fourth time, this is like if you have a sincere request for the Dharma, you ask 3 times. The fourth time he did that to the Buddha refused. The Buddha said no, but the Buddha didn't, the Buddha still addressed him as respectable Sir. He says, no, respectable Sir, I won't get out. Do what you must. Then the spirit told the Buddha, says, I will ask you a question, ascetic. If you don't answer me, I'll drive you insane or explode your heart or grab you by the feet and throw you to the far shore of the Ganges. That means from here you can tell it's a pretty powerful yaksha. And the sutra here doesn't really say if he knows who the Buddha, if he knows whether that's the Buddha or not. But in a commentary, he knows. In a commentary, he knows that that's the Buddha, but he thinks that he can push the Buddha around. He thinks that he's actually a very powerful yaksha. Okay? So he threatens the Buddha. And the Buddha said, well, I don't see anyone in this world with the gods, the maras, the heavenly beings, this population with its ascetics and Brahmins, gods and humans who could do that to me. So the Buddha is not being boastful. The Buddha is he's just stating a fact. And then the Buddha says, but anyway, ask what you wish. Okay, so the first time I read this sutra a long time ago, I didn't know there was a commentary. So I had this question. It's like, doesn't the Buddha know about this spirit? But actually the Buddha knows. Yeah, and we'll come to that. So he starts asking the Buddha a series of questions. The first question is this: what's a person's best wealth? What brings happiness when practiced well? What's the sweetest taste of all? The one they say has the best life. How do they live? Okay. Then the Buddha's answer is: faith here is a person's best wealth. The teaching brings happiness when practiced well. Truth is the sweetest taste of all. The one they say has the best life lives by wisdom. Then he asks a second set of questions. He says, how do you cross the flood? How do you cross the deluge? How do you get over suffering? How do you get purified? Buddha says, by faith, you cross the flood, and by diligence, the deluge. By energy, you get past suffering, and you are purified by wisdom. Then he asks the Buddha, he says, how do you get wisdom? How do you earn wealth? How do you get a good reputation? How do you hold on to friends? How do the departed not grieve when passing from this world to the next? Then Buddha says, one who is diligent and discerning gains wisdom by wanting to learn, having faith in the perfected ones and the teaching for becoming extinguished. Then the Buddha continues by saying, being responsible and acting appropriately and working hard, you earn wealth. Truthfulness wins you a good reputation. You hold on to friends by giving. That's how the departed do not grieve when passing from this world to the next. A faithful householder of discernment who possesses these four qualities does not grieve after passing away: truth, principle, steadfastness, and generosity. Okay, you can. The questions here are very similar to what a lay person might ask the Buddha. Then the Buddha says, go ahead, you can ask others as well. There are many ascetics and Brahmins. See whether anything better is found than truth, principle, generosity, and patience. So the Buddha says, you can, don't take my word for it, go ask around and you will see if what I tell you is true or not. So the Yaksha replied, says, why now would I question the many ascetics and Brahmins? Today I understand what's good for the next life. It was truly for my benefit that the Buddha came to stay at Alavi. Today I understand where a gift is very fruitful. I myself will journey village to village, town to town, paying homage to the Buddha and the clear rightness of the teaching. In other words, he will go and praise the Buddha and the Dharma. He says from now on. Okay. Now, the sutra doesn't really tell you much. It just tells you a bit of the encounter. Okay. But what actually happened is this. Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay, sorry, I'm just getting my notes in order. So, what does a commentary have to say about this? Well, the story happens before the arrival of the Buddha. What happened was this: there was a king of Alawi, and he was out hunting in the wilderness. And then as he was out hunting, he became separated from his entourage. So he managed to kill a deer. And he was carrying the deer, and he came under this tree. And this tree is actually the home of this Yaksha, this Alavaka Yaksha. And apparently, this Yaksha had been given permission by his boss that any being that comes under the tree, he had permission to eat the being. So when he saw the king, he grabbed hold of the king, intending to eat the king. But the king pleaded for his life, and he said, instead of eating me, he says, instead, if you let me go as the king, every day I will send you one human being and a pot of rice that you can eat every day. So it's a bit like, something like give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, But in this case, the king saved his life by sacrificing a lot of other people. So Alavaka agreed. I mean, that's a really good bargain. But he warned the king. He said, the moment you stop this agreement, I will come for your life. So for some time, the king did as he promised. Every day, because he had prisoners, he would just pick a prisoner and send it to the yaksha for his meal with a pot of rice. But when his prisoners ran out, he ordered that every day, one family must provide one child. And after a while, people became scared, so they started to flee the kingdom. And it ended up one day there was no one else to send except his own son. Okay, there were no other children around except his son, but his son, of course, was very dear to him, and he but yet, he said, oh, this has to be done. So the Buddha, on that day itself, it is said that every morning the Buddha will survey the world, and the Buddha will know those with little dust in their eyes, who can the Buddha save? So what the Buddha saw that, the conditions was right for this yaksha to be saved. Spoiler alert, the yaksha at the end of the sutra gained the fruit of stream enterer. That means he became a first stage arhat. And the Buddha saw that. The conditions are right, that if I go to the yaksha today, that I will be able to make him a stream enterer. And not only that, he says that the prince actually would become a third stage arhat. So the prince that was supposed to be sacrificed to the yaksha on that day. So what did he do? The Buddha went. That's how the Buddha went to the yaksha's place. So when the Buddha arrived at the yaksha's, actually it's not a tree, it's a palace. He wasn't there. The yaksha wasn't there. And the yaksha's servant, where was the yaksha? The yaksha was attending a council of yakshas, a high-level yaksha meeting in the Himawa. The Himawa is like a mountain range that is, if I'm not wrong, it's usually featured in the Jatakas, where you have those animals that can speak, and where the people who can meditate well and have spiritual abilities, that's where they like to go, far away from people. That's known as the Himawas. I don't think it's a place normal human beings can go to. Anyway, in the commentaries, it says that this yaksha's palace was 8 stories. It's a magnificent palace with very tall walls, gates and watch towers, and was very adorned. And one of the gatekeepers greeted the Buddha very respectfully, and the Buddha said he wanted to come and see his master. And he told the Buddha, I said, my master is not in. And the Buddha insisted that no, he wanted to come in. Then he warned the Buddha. He said, no. He said, my boss is very coarse and he's very rough. He has no regard for anyone, for his mother, father, for samanas, for Brahmins, or the Dharma. He says he will overthrow your mind, rend your heart asunder, and grab you by the feet, and either throw you over the ocean or out of the world system altogether. So that's how mighty this yaksha was. So 3 times, the Buddha insisted that he would wait for Alavaka's return inside his fortress. So after that, the gatekeeper saw that there was no way he could convince the Buddha. And then he said that, if I let you into my master's house, he will kill me instead. So he says, let me go and inform him that you are here to see him. So the Buddha went into the palace. And not only did he go into the palace, the palace, he sat on the throne. So this yaksha spirit had his throne. So he's not a normal yaksha spirit. He's a great, like a yaksha king or something like that, because he has a throne. So the Buddha sat on it and emitted a glorious light. And then this yaksha had many wives. So they came and they saw the Buddha and they started to pay their respects to the Buddha, and the Buddha started to teach them the Dharma. He said, oh, you're all enjoying a good life now because in your past lives you live according to the precepts, you were very generous, and which is why now you're enjoying happiness. So he says, in this present life, don't let yourselves be overcome by jealousy and meanness towards one another. So the Buddha was teaching them the Dharma. Then at that time, when the Buddha was teaching the yakshas' wives or concubines the Dharma, there were two other yakshas flying overhead, and they were also going to join this council meeting of the yakshas. And apparently, if you are a yaksha, you can't just fly anywhere you want. You have to fly according to fixed paths, like a highway. You can only follow certain paths. And it is said that if the Buddha, or I'm not sure about normal monastics, but I think if you are a sage, the yakshas cannot fly above sages. Yeah, either they are blocked or they realize that they have to come down on the ground. Yeah, they can't. I think it's considered as disrespectful. So when they came directly above Alavaka's palace, they couldn't go any further. So they realized that they came down, and then they realized that the Buddha was in this Alavaka's house. And these two were friendly to the Buddha, because when they saw the Buddha, they paid their respects to the Buddha, and they actually thought, wow, this Alavaka has a lot of blessings because the Buddha is in his home. So then they departed to the council of yakshas, and then at that time, when they arrived, the gatekeeper of the servant of Alavaka had arrived also at the council and told his master that the Buddha was waiting for him at his palace. Now, probably when he said that, the other yakshas also knew. And I think because Alavaka was not friendly towards the Buddha, he didn't consider himself a disciple of the Buddha. Why? Because he was a very capable, he had a lot of spiritual powers. He wasn't happy when to let people know that the Buddha was waiting in his palace. And not only that, the two yakshas that was flying to the council, after they arrived, they told everyone that they had met the Buddha, and they praised the Buddha, and they started telling Alavaka how fortunate he was that the Buddha was waiting for him at his home. Oh, that made Alavaka extremely, extremely angry. It is said that he stood with his left foot on a mountain called Mano Sila Tata, and his right foot on Mount Kailasa, which is 60 yojanas apart, and he gave a great shout that was heard over the whole world, the entire world, the entire Jambu. He shouted his name. He says, I am Alavaka. That's how angry he was. Now, he flew back. Okay, he flew back, he says, in a ferocious whirlwind which uprooted whole trees and scattered the roof tiles of the city. That was how upset he was. And why did he do that? He wanted to scare the Buddha away. But the wind that he generated, he thought could blow the Buddha out. He says, the commentary says, did not even ruffle the Buddha's robes. So what did he do next? He tried to kill the Buddha by creating a rainstorm. This is how powerful it is. And the rain flooded the forest, but the Buddha's robes were not even did not even get wet. So this made him even more upset. Then he caused a volcano to erupt from the mountains, and he cast huge rocks into the sky, hoping to crush the Buddha. But the boulders turned into celestial flowers as they fell at the Buddha's feet. So he kept on, instead of giving up, he kept on attacking the Buddha. Then he started sending weapons down at the Buddha, a rain of hot ashes, a ferocious sandstorm, then a shower of thick mud. But everything he tried turned into flowers and fell at the Buddha's feet. And then he said that Alavaka was still not ready to admit defeat. So what did he do? He created a great black pall of darkness to descend upon the Buddha. And then he told himself, said, this horrifying sight will surely terrify that Samana and make him flee in despair. But what did the Buddha do? The Buddha emitted radiance of his own that casts away the darkness. Now, how does that happen? Think of it like this. If you have yang qi, that means qi that is bright. If you walk into a dark room and you just turn on the light, where does the darkness go? The darkness cannot fight with the light, right? All the shadows will disappear, right? So that's what the Buddha did. But then Alavaka, having failed again, had not used his most terrifying weapon yet. It was a weapon called the Banner Dusa Buddha. What was this? This is known as one of the 4 great weapons of the world. Okay, a cloth banner of awful power. It is said that if it was cast into the sky, no rain would fall for 12 years. If you throw it onto the ground, all the trees and grass would wither and nothing would grow again for also 12 years. If you throw it into the sea, the ocean would totally dry up. It would boil away entirely. If you throw it on a mountain, even like Mount Sumeru, which is a huge mountain, much larger than Everest, it would shatter the mountain into pieces. Yeah. So as Alavaka took out his weapon in his hands, it is said that all the devas of the whole 10,000-fold world system, that means the entire tricholism, gathered in the sky to watch. And then they all said, but they all knew that the Buddha would defeat Alavaka. The only person who didn't know was Alavaka. So from here you can see how great of a being Alavaka was. So Alavaka threw this weapon at the Buddha, but he said that it fell harmlessly to the ground before him and changed into a foot washing rag. It wasn't a weapon anymore. This broke the great pride of Alavaka. And what did the Buddha do? The Buddha radiated loving kindness to him. And then at this point, when he had nothing left, he ordered the Buddha to get out and come back 3 times. And every time it is said that the Buddha replied either "so be it, friend," or "respectable sir." So this is when we read the sutra earlier, the sutra started here. The sutra did not have all the interesting backstory to it. Okay, now, why did he ask the Buddha those questions? Well, it's because this yaksha had a family heirloom, which was a golden tablet. And inscribed on this golden tablet was a series of questions that his own parents had asked the previous Buddha, Kashyapa Buddha. So he tested the Buddha with the exact same questions on the tablet. And he was surprised, he was astonished that the Buddha's answer matched the answer that Kashyapa Buddha gave his parents word for word. And when this happened, he became a stream enterer. Yeah. So after all this was over, okay, after all this was over, it was morning, and then guess who arrived? The king's messenger came with the little prince that was intended for his meal. So the child was handed to Alavaka, who was now as a stream enterer. He was ashamed of his previous conduct, and he handed the prince to the Buddha, who gave the prince back to the king's messenger. And this prince, later he left home. His name is known as Hataka Alavaka, by the hand of Alavaka. Oh no, sorry, he didn't become a monastic, this prince. He became one of the greatest of the Buddha's lay disciples. Yeah. So this is how even a short sutra like this has such an interesting backstory of how one of the most fearsome yakshas got converted by the Buddha's loving kindness and compassion, and how he declared that he would go around singing praises of the Buddha and the Dharma from then on. Okay, all right, it is time. Can anyone remember last our last lecture? Did we do the which transference did we do? Does anyone remember? I think we did the Abhayagiri one, right? Yeah, if I'm not wrong, I think we did the Abhayagiri one. So in that case, what I'm going to do is get the other one that we always, the normal DRBA English one, and we'll dedicate merit. Okay. Well, let me ask you all a question. How is the sound quality? Do you all hear any hissing in the background? No? Okay.
Sounds very good, Master.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Everyone, Amitabha, and we'll see you all next week.
Amitabha, thank you, Master.